Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 27th of April. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. We open with heightened tensions in the north, where 4 terrorists were killed while attempting to set up an ambush of IDF forces on the Israeli side of the Golan Heights border with Syria. And fresh reports are coming out of Lebanon claiming that Israel's Air Force carried out another strike on rocket bases in Syria, alleged to be the third in less than 1 week. We get more from IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan.
The northern border is heating up. According to Arab media reports, the Israeli Air Force carried out another strike at targets in Syria last night. This came shortly after Hezbollah militants were killed after they infiltrated from Syria and tried to plant a bomb on the frontier road near an Israeli outpost on the Golan Heights. Anyone approaching the Israeli border to plant bombs or lay an ambush is on a virtual suicide mission, since the entire frontier is under the watchful eye of combat intelligence units and sophisticated radars. The IDF spokesman said all 4 terrorists in the squad were killed. Residents in the north say today that there is heightened military activity with drones and helicopters in constant flight above the frontier and occasional gunfire. Reports from Lebanon say that the Israeli warplane struck for the 3rd time in less than a week a rocket base on the Syrian Kalamoun Mountains. Al Jazeera said that unlike previous strikes, this attack caused casualties. However, some Israeli media have quoted an unnamed source in Lebanon saying that the attack was not carried out by the Air Force, but the work of Syrian rebels. That source said the attack highlighted coordination between Israel and the Syrian rebels. Yet another nugget in the disinformation warfare being waged on this murky front. Last night, Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon hosted IDF brass and foreign military attachés to celebrate Israel's independence and warned Israel will not tolerate the transfer of advanced weaponry to Hezbollah or open a front on the Golan Heights. We know how to place our hands on anyone who threatens Israeli civilians, Ya'alon said. Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
There is good news coming out of Nepal, where a short time ago, members of the Harel Search and Rescue Unit succeeded in evacuating 4 Israelis who had been trapped on the slopes of Mount Everest since the devastating earthquake on Saturday. The trekkers are described as being in good condition. These latest developments come as international relief is continuing to pour into Nepal amid the rising number of fatalities. Early this morning, Israeli babies born to surrogate mothers in the South Asian nation began to arrive here in the country. IBA's Margot Dukevich has more in this report.
The death toll in Nepal rose over the 3,600 mark today, with thousands injured and some 100 Israelis still unaccounted for. At noon, the Foreign Ministry said it had no information of injured Israelis. The quake-stricken country has been left without running water and electricity, and the constant aftershocks have sent tens of thousands of people out into the streets. Large areas of Kathmandu turned into tent cities, with people camping out and searching for food. Many of the remote villages outside the country's capital are believed to have been obliterated in the earthquake. Others suffered severe damage and left residents without any means of communication. Search and rescue teams and aid relief from around the world continued to arrive in Nepal today, where crews began the momentous task of searching for survivors, helping to treat the wounded and hand out blankets, food and water. Israel was one of the first countries to join the relief efforts. This morning, planes carrying more than 260 search and rescue workers from the Army's Home Front Command set out for Nepal, including professional rescue and search teams, doctors, nurses, vital food supplies, water, medicine, and a fully stocked field hospital. They were delayed a day after the runway at Kathmandu's airport suffered damage from the aftershocks. The Army said the same planes delivering aid to Nepal will return stranded Israelis home.
The IDF Medical Corps is ready and prepared to build a field hospital in Nepal, in the region of the earthquake. We know from the reports from the area that there are a lot of casualties, so we plan to build a hospital that will function as a tertiary hospital, which means we can operate, we can have intensive care, hospitalize, and even escort patients, the wounded, the injured, to Israel.
This morning, an initial relief flight landed in Israel, bringing 3 premature babies born to surrogate mothers in Nepal and their Israeli parents. The babies were taken to Soroka Hospital in Beersheba for treatment. Another plane chartered by the Magen David Adom ambulance service was due to return to Israel, bringing 8 additional newborn babies and their Israeli parents home. The Ministry of Interior also permitted the entry of pregnant Nepalese surrogates, who would be allowed to remain in the country until they've given birth to their Israeli babies. Taking advantage of a break in the weather, helicopters began evacuating injured climbers from base camps 1 and 2 at the foot of Mount Everest, where an estimated 100 climbers and guides are still trapped since Saturday's massive 7.9 earthquake triggered avalanches burying climbers and smashing into the camps. More than 60 climbers were injured, and many others still unaccounted for. In Kathmandu, hospitals were having a hard time coping with the thousands of injured and set up beds in the city streets.
Actually, what happened was he was under the building for 3 hours, and he was rescued by a rescue team, and he was taken to the hospital. But now he has some swelling problems.
Locals and foreigners crammed into the local airport where long queues formed, with everyone hoping to get a flight out. Elsewhere in Kathmandu, local media reports said thousands of Nepalese began fleeing the mountain valley city, fed up with sleeping outside and concerned over the dwindling food supply. Roads leading out of the capital were jammed with people and traffic. For now, the situation in Nepal is about survival and less about rebuilding. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
Dramatic video has emerged capturing the moment that the earthquake hit and triggered an avalanche at the base camp of Mount Everest, filmed by German climber Jost Kabusch. At least 22 international climbers were killed and 62 others injured in the disaster, and many more mountain trekkers are still missing or awaiting rescue. The death toll is expected to continue rising at Everest, where access remains very limited. 100 people from higher altitudes have so far been evacuated by helicopters deployed by Nepal's Mountaineering Department to shuttle survivors to lower bases. It has been announced that one of the fatalities killed in the avalanche was Google executive Dan Friedenberg, who shot this video that you're about to see just days before his death.
Here is where all the things we have, was warm, are stored up. From boots to gloves to booze.
Some 525 citizens from Nepal are currently studying here in Israel, 160 of whom are enrolled at the ACAT International Center for Agricultural Training at Sapir College in Sderot, who gathered together for a prayer vigil for their relatives and loved ones back home. A short time ago, I spoke with the students' leader, Binod Gimere, and asked him if he and his colleagues have been successful in making contact with their families.
Yes, of course we contact, but hardly, not too easily, because there are no electricity, nothing now. So we are difficulties for many times. We're trying, and then some minutes we will succeed, but sometimes the problem of communication. So we are difficulties now communication with our families and then also relatives. Yes, of course we are too much difficulties now.
Have you been surprised by the level of help that Israel is offering your nation?
Yes, I was, but the Israeli people, Israeli government is very, very, very good. The situation, we are very well for our countries and our families. They are not to like how to survive, because all the houses is destroyed, collapsed, all the the hospitals, the water supply, everything going bad situation. So the Israeli government and the Israeli rescue team, we are showing news report and television, also Israeli television. We are surprised. Yes, there's good support for us. Thank you very much. We need to give in. Thank you very much, Israeli government.
Binod, I want to thank you, and speaking for everyone here at IBA News today, best of luck to you, your loved ones, and all of your fellow citizens.
Thank you very much. You gave me a good opportunity for our this bad situation. You give you the chance to share my, the feelings, that feelings. Thank you very much.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif are slated to hold talks in New York today for the first time since they agreed to the framework for a nuclear accord at the start of the month. The meeting comes as negotiators from the Islamic Republic and the P5+1 world powers are renewing their efforts to reach a long-term agreement by the June deadline. Ahead of today's meeting, the chief of the Iranian Atomic Energy Organization insisted that no international inspections of his country's nuclear facilities will be permitted until there is a complete and immediate lifting of economic sanctions.
If Iran has taken all the necessary measures, then it is expected that they will be lifting all the sanctions, whatever sanctions there are, immediately, all of them. This is a touchy issue as to how we will have to do this, because our work is doing things on ground. Their work is doing things on paper. So there's a difference. So if ever they break their promises, for us it's difficult to revert back immediately. Whatever position is taken by either side I think, is an immature position, because it has not yet been, the discussions on these issues have not been exhausted yet. So it's immature to speak on the snapback from one perspective. We are negotiating with the government of the United States. And the responsibility lies on the shoulders of the government of the United States. So if they commit themselves to anything during the negotiation with us, then it is up to them to see how they can manage internally to push forward that understanding reached with us.
Here at home, and turning to coalition negotiations, and the possibility that Habayit UD leader Naftali Bennett may become the next Minister of Education has appeared to not only have upset a number of Likud members of Knesset, but also the politician who formerly served in that position. Here with more is IBA's political correspondent, Eli Wogelenter.
Senior Likud Knesset members are angry over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's tentative offer of the Education Ministry to Naftali Bennett, both for political reasons and ideological ones. Minister Gilad Erdan expressed his concern that Netanyahu will acquiesce to Bennett's demand for the education portfolio on ideological grounds. I don't want to see an option here for the education portfolio to pass out of the hands of Likud, Erdan told Army Radio. This is not a portfolio that is meant for the religious Zionist party. We need to keep it. One senior Likudnik was quoted by Haaretz as saying, "It's inconceivable for us to get warmed over leftovers while our partners are getting the sought-after ministries. I intend to make this clear to the Prime Minister in the coming days." And another Likud member was quoted saying, "It's already clear that most of Likud's senior ministers won't get upgraded jobs." Netanyahu gave all the significant positions to his coalition partners. Bennett, currently the economy minister, has been demanding the foreign ministry held by Yisrael Beitenu leader Avigdor Lieberman. But over the weekend, Bennett set his sights instead on the education ministry and formally asked Netanyahu for the portfolio on Saturday night. Education is an especially important issue for the national religious constituency represented by Bennett's party. His decision paved the way for Bayit UD to receive 3 portfolios. According to the report, Netanyahu is expected to definitively confirm to Bennett whether the ministry is his by tomorrow. And it's not just the Likud MKs who are upset by Bennett getting his new job. Former education minister and staunch Meretz leftist Yossi Sarid said he was, quote, disgusted by the mere thought that the most extreme nationalist in the government could be put in charge of the education of our children and grandchildren. The thought of it is absolutely atrocious. Sarid said he was concerned that Bennett would build a yeshiva and religious schools on the Temple Mount. The only question is how much damage he will do, said Sarid. I hope not too much. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. And in other news, former mayor of Bat Yam, Shlomo Lahiani, has been sentenced to 8 months in prison for committing breach of public trust and fraud after the Tel Aviv District Court today significantly hardened his previous sentence of just 6 months community service. Prosecutors appealed the initial ruling handed down last September, arguing that it failed to include any time behind bars. Lahiani was arraigned in October of 2013 on charges of accepting an estimated 900,000 shekels in bribes. He was convicted the following May after agreeing to a plea bargain deal when the state dropped more serious related charges. Military prosecutors have filed the first indictments against troops over alleged incidents during the conflict with Gaza last summer. 2 soldiers face charges of stealing 2,420 shekels and obstruction of justice, while a 3rd soldier has been indicted for aiding and abetting the theft that allegedly occurred at a residence in Gaza's Shazaya neighborhood, where the soldiers were temporarily deployed. A total of 19 criminal investigations have so far been ordered, with one involving the death of Palestinian civilians. Holocaust survivors gathered alongside dignitaries at the memorial site of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in northern Germany for a solemn ceremony commemorating its liberation from the Nazis 70 years ago. Upon their arrival at the camp on April 15, 1945, British troops discovered 60,000 half-starved and seriously ill prisoners and at least 13,000 unburied corpses. German President Joachim Gauck thanked the British soldiers of the 11th Armored Division for their actions, honoring them as ambassadors of a democratic culture that was not seeking revenge. 200,000 people are estimated to have been deported to Bergen-Belsen during the Nazi reign of terror, 70,000 of whom died there, including the young diarist Anne Frank. Ceremonies have been held across Germany and Poland throughout this spring, marking the advance of Allied troops as the Third Reich neared defeat. In other regional news, residents in northern Sinai are experiencing a critical shortage of fuel with no resolution in sight amid the Egyptian government's crackdown on Islamist insurgents. Gas stations in Rafah and Sheikh Zayed have been completely closed down for the last 8 months after military operations barred all trucks from entering the cities following a heavy spate of terror attacks. Drivers who want to fill their tanks have to travel to El Arish, where they're forced to wait in line for hours to receive ration supplies. Also compounding the issue was the Defense Authority's decision to close the Salam Bridge connecting the peninsula to the rest of Egypt, resulting in heavy traffic congestion and more long lines of those waiting to cross the Suez Canal. Cairo has just extended the state of emergency that was declared in the area last October when terrorists stepped up their anti-state campaign that has left hundreds of soldiers and police officers stationed in the Sinai dead since mid-2013 when Islamist President Mohamed Morsi was ousted in a military coup. Even though Israel was once considered the world's leading diamond manufacturer, in recent years it's primarily been operating as a trading center. IBA reporter Alexander Jen tells us about new plans for the industry to regain its sparkle as the premier gem of the international market.
Diamonds, diamonds, diamonds. Israel is in the process of renewing diamond production within the country after a 25-year lull. New diamond manufacturing centers have been established, and a school has been opened to teach a new generation of polishers. Cheaper labor, financial support, and an aptitude for technology has influenced the relocation of the Israeli diamond industry to India. But Ramat Gan has remained a dominant trading hub for the most expensive stone in the world, exporting $6.3 billion of the gem in 2014. Israeli experts believe training a new generation of diamond polishers will be the answer to keeping the diamond-producing tradition alive.
We have a new project that we built this year. We invest a few millions of shekels, and we try to open a new school for a young generation of polishers. We check and we find out that the polisher in Israel the average age is 55, and we try to push new blood to the industry. We are the first one in the world to make this project.
Sponsored by the Economics Ministry, the initiative offers a 6-week course load of geometry, light, and cutting. Classes are followed by a 16-month-long internship at the Ramat Gan factory for young people interested in working in the industry. During the internship, students work closely with expert polishers at the 4-month-old Diamond Center to learn the tricks of the trade. The diamond cutting process is meticulous and complex. First, the dazzling stone is weighed and examined to determine what shape it will be. During this part of the process, experts consider the best way to cut into the diamond and estimate the price. Next, sawing, or separating the stone into 2 pieces. Then the jewel is put into a machine with spinning axles that work to shape it. This is called brooding. After the jewel is shaped, it is polished to achieve maximum shine, known as brilliantiering. Lastly, the final product is once again inspected for any flaws or necessary improvements. Israel's Diamond Center in Ramat Gan employs 100 polishers with an estimated 1,000 nationwide. A far cry from the 1990s when Israel provided jobs for over 30,000 diamond employees. The diamond business has traveled from New York to Belgium to Israel to India and may return to Israel once the results of this new diamond initiative take effect. Alexandra Jen for IBA News.
Taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today put in a mixed performance in foreign currency trading, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange did the same. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us we can expect sunny skies and a continuation of our unseasonably warm conditions over the next several days. Here's the forecast to home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel, when I'll be back with the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.